Captain Elena Vasquez stood on the bridge of the USS Resolute, watching the stars through the main viewport. The ship was old, one of the first human vessels to venture beyond the Sol system, but it had served her well for 12 years. The metal walls hummed with the sound of engines that never stopped working. "Captain, we are picking up something strange on the long-range sensors," said Lieutenant Chen from his station. His voice was calm, but Elena could hear the small shake in it. After years of working together, she knew when something was wrong. She walked over to his console, her boots making soft sounds on the metal floor. The screen showed a map of the sector they were patrolling. A red dot was blinking near the edge. "What am I looking at?" she asked. "It is a gravitational disturbance, Captain, but it is not like anything in our records. The readings are all over the place. One moment it looks like a small black hole, the next moment it looks like folded space." Elena frowned. They were in neutral territory, far from any human colony. This part of space was claimed by no one, mostly because there was nothing here worth claiming, just empty systems and dead rocks floating in the void. "How far away?" "About 4 hours at standard speed. But Captain, there is something else." Chen typed on his console and the screen changed. Now it showed ship signatures, many of them. "There is a Vorthan fleet heading toward the same location." Elena felt her stomach tight. The Vorthan were one of the most powerful species in the galaxy. They had been at war with humanity for 3 years now. The war had not gone well for either side. Millions had died on both fronts. The Vorthan were larger than humans, with hard skin like armor and 4 arms that could crush steel. They were proud warriors who valued strength above all else. "How many ships?" she asked. 12, 7 battlecruisers and 5 support vessels. They are not trying to hide. And they are heading toward that anomaly. "Yes, Captain, they should reach it in about 3 hours. Elena thought about this for a long moment. The smart thing to do would be to turn around and report back to command. The Resolute was a scout ship, not built for combat. Against 12 Vorthan ships, they would last about 5 minutes. But something about this situation felt wrong. The Vorthan were many things, but they were not stupid. Why would they send a fleet to investigate a random space anomaly in neutral territory? "Helm set a course to follow them. Keep us at maximum sensor range. I want to see what they are doing without them seeing us." "Yes, Captain," said the helmsman, a young woman named Rodriguez who had been with the crew for only 6 months. The next few hours passed slowly. Elena stayed on the bridge, drinking cup after cup of coffee that tasted like it had been made from recycled water. Which it had been, because that was how things worked on a ship far from home. The Vorthan fleet moved in a tight formation. Their ships were beautiful in a terrible way, like weapons made into art. Each one was covered in spikes and sharp angles, painted in the dark purple that their species favored. Even their smallest support ship was bigger than the Resolute. "Captain, the anomaly is changing," said Chen. His voice was higher now, truly worried. "The readings are getting more intense, I think. I think it might be growing." Elena looked at the screen. The red dot that marked the anomaly was indeed bigger now, and the numbers next to it were climbing fast. "What does that mean?" "I do not know. This is not in any of our databases, but whatever it is putting out more energy than a small star. If those readings are correct, anything that gets too close will be torn apart." Elena felt cold despite the warm air of the bridge. The Vorthan fleet is heading right for it. "Yes, they will reach the danger zone in about 20 minutes. She had a choice to make. She could do nothing and watch the enemy fleet fly into destruction. 12 ships, each carrying hundreds of Vorthan soldiers. Thousands of lives, all belonging to people who would kill her if they got the chance. Part of her whispered that this would be good for the war. Losing 12 ships would hurt the Vorthan badly. It might even end the fighting. But another part of her, the part that had made her become a captain in the first place, could not accept that. Warning them might be the right thing to do, or it might be the most foolish thing she had ever done. "Open a channel to the Vorthan fleet," she said. The bridge went silent. Everyone turned to look at her. "Captain," said Chen, "they will see us. They will know where we are." "I know, do it anyway." Chen's fingers moved slowly over his console. "Channel open, Captain." Alina took a deep breath. She had never spoken to a Vorthan before, except through the firing of weapons. Her heart was beating fast, but she kept her voice steady. "Vorthan Fleet, this is Captain Alina Vasquez of the USS Resolute. I am transmitting on all frequencies because this is urgent. The space anomaly you are approaching is extremely dangerous. Our sensors show it is growing in strength. If you continue on your current course, your ships will be destroyed. Please stop and respond." She waited. The seconds stretched out like hours. On the screen, she could see the Vorthan ships continuing forward. They had not slowed down at all. "No response, Captain," said Chen. "Try again." "Vorthan Fleet, this is the USS Resolute. I repeat, the anomaly is dangerous. You need to stop. Please respond." More silence. Then finally a harsh voice filled the bridge. It spoke in accented standard, the common language of space. "Human ship, you are in Vorthan territory. Leave now or be destroyed." Alina almost laughed. Vorthan territory. This was neutral space. But she did not have time to argue about borders. "I am not here to fight. I am here to warn you. The anomaly ahead is not stable. If you get too close, your ships will be pulled apart. Look at your own sensors. You must see the energy readings." There was a pause, then a different voice spoke, deeper and older. "Why would a human warn us? We are enemies." "Because I do not want to watch thousands of people die when I could have stopped it, even if those people are Vorthan." Another pause. Alina could imagine the confusion on the Vorthan bridge. Their culture was built around strength and conquest. The idea of an enemy helping them probably did not make any sense. "You are lying," said the first voice. "This is a trick. You want us to stop so your fleet can attack." "I have no fleet. I have one ship, a scout ship. You could destroy me in seconds. I am not a threat to you, but that anomaly is." The energy readings on Chen's screen jumped again. The anomaly was growing faster now. Alina could see strange lights on the long-range cameras, colors that should not exist in normal space. "Captain," said Chen quietly, "they have about 10 minutes before they enter the danger zone, maybe less." Alina spoke again, her voice urgent now. "Please, I am begging you, look at your own data. The gravitational forces around that anomaly are off the scale. Your shields will not protect you. Your engines will not save you. If you do not stop now, you will all die." The line went dead. The Vorthan had cut the communication. Alina watched the screen, feeling helpless. The enemy fleet continued forward, 12 ships sailing toward destruction. She had tried. She had done what she could, but they would not listen. "Captain," said Rodriguez from the helm, "what do we do?" Alina looked at her young helmsman. Rodriguez had family back on Earth, a mother, 2 sisters. She had joined the fleet to protect them from the Vorthan. What should they do? The smart thing would be to leave. The Vorthan had made their choice. They did not want human help. They would rather die than accept it. But Alina was not feeling smart today. She was feeling stubborn. "Plot a course to intercept the Vorthan fleet. Best speed." "Captain, that will put us in the danger zone," said Chen. "I know, but maybe if they see us putting ourselves at risk, they will believe us." The Resolute turned and accelerated. The old ship groaned under the stress, its engines working harder than they had in years. Alina gripped the arms of her chair as the stars blurred outside the viewport. "Time to intercept?" she asked. 6 minutes, said Rodriguez. "They will see us in 4. 4 minutes. 4 minutes until the Vorthan decided whether to shoot them or listen to them. Alina had never felt time move so slowly. "All hands, this is the captain," she said into the ship-wide channel. "We are about to do something very stupid. We are going to fly into danger to save people who want to kill us. If anyone has a problem with that, I understand. But I believe it is the right thing to do. Vasquez out. She closed the channel and waited. No one on the bridge moved. No one argued. Her crew trusted her even when she made crazy decisions. The minutes crawled by. Then Chen spoke, his voice tight with tension. Captain, the Vorthan fleet has detected us. They are changing course. Alina looked at the screen. The 12 enemy ships were turning, their formation shifting. For a moment she thought they were getting ready to attack. Then she realized they were turning toward the Resolute, not to fight. They were following. Part 2. Fleet Commander Krath stood in the center of his bridge, all 4 of his arms crossed over his broad chest. His armored skin was dark gray, marked with scars from 100 battles. He had led the Vorthan 4th Fleet for 20 cycles, and in all that time, he had never been so confused. A human ship, one small human ship flying straight toward the Anomaly, straight toward certain death, to warn them. It made no sense. Humans were the enemy. They had been fighting for 3 years. Krath himself had destroyed a dozen human vessels. He had watched them burn and felt nothing but satisfaction. But this human captain, this Alina Vasquez, had risked her life to save his fleet. Either she was the most clever liar in the galaxy, or she was telling the truth. "Commander," said his sensor officer, "the anomaly readings are changing. The energy output is now 10 times what it was an hour ago, if we had continued on our original course." Krath did not need him to finish. He could see the numbers on the screen. They would all be dead. 12 ships, thousands of warriors, gone in an instant, all because they did not listen to a human. "Open a channel to the human ship," he said. The communication crackled to life. "Vorthan Fleet, this is Captain Vasquez." "Human, why did you do this? Why did you save us?" There was a pause before she answered. "Because it was the right thing to do. We are enemies. We have killed your people. You have killed ours." "I know, but that does not mean I want to watch you die, especially not like this. Not to some random space accident that has nothing to do with our war." Krath thought about this. In Vorthan culture, helping an enemy was considered weakness. It was something to be ashamed of, but the humans did not see it that way. To them it was honor. "You are a strange species," he said finally. "I have been told that before. What do you expect in return for this warning? Safe passage, a prisoner exchange?" "I expect nothing. I just wanted to save lives, that is all." Krath was quiet for a long moment. Around him, his crew watched, waiting to see how he would respond. They were as confused as he was. "Captain Vasquez," he said slowly, "among my people there is a concept called blood debt. When someone saves your life, you owe them a debt that must be paid. It is a matter of honor. I do not want. I am not finished. This debt is sacred. It cannot be ignored. You have saved my fleet, my warriors, thousands of lives. That is a debt I can never fully repay. Commander, I did not do this for a reward. I did it because it was right. You do not owe me anything." But Krath was no longer listening. He was thinking about the war, about the endless fighting that had cost both sides so much. And he was thinking about how everything might be different if there were more people like this human captain. "Perhaps," he said quietly, "we have been fighting the wrong enemy." He turned to his second in command, a younger Vorthan named Vess, who had been watching the exchange with obvious confusion. "Signal all ships to follow the human vessel, match their course exactly, and send word to High Command that we have made contact with an unusual situation." "Commander, are you sure? The humans have just saved our lives, Vess. The least we can do is listen to what they have to say." The Vorthan fleet turned as one, following the small human ship toward safety. It was the first time in the history of the war that Vorthan vessels had willingly followed a human lead. On the bridge of the Resolute, Alina watched them turn with a mixture of relief and disbelief. "They are following us," said Chen, his voice filled with wonder. "They actually listened." "Never thought I would see the day," muttered Rodriguez from the helm. "Vorthan taking orders from a human." Alina did not respond. She was too busy watching the anomaly on the sensors. It was still growing, still pulsing with that strange energy. They had avoided one disaster, but she had a feeling their troubles were just beginning. The anomaly continued to grow over the next few hours. Both fleets had retreated to a safe distance and now hung in space, watching the strange lights swirl and pulse. Scientists from both sides were running tests, trying to understand what they were dealing with. Alina had never stood next to a Vorthan before. Commander Krath was huge, nearly 3 meters tall, with skin like stone and eyes like molten gold. He could have crushed her with one hand. Instead, he stood beside her on the observation deck of his flagship, looking out at the anomaly together. "My scientists say it is some kind of tear in space," he said. "A wound in the fabric of reality itself. They do not know what caused it or how to stop it." "My people are saying the same thing. It is growing about 10% every hour. If it keeps going, it will consume this entire sector within a week." Krath made a sound that might have been a laugh, and we were sailing right into it like blind pups. You could not have known. The readings were confusing. Even my own sensors had trouble making sense of them. "But you figured it out. You saw the danger when we did not." Alina shook her head. "My science officer figured it out, Lieutenant Chen. He is very good at his job." "Then I owe him a debt as well." They stood in silence for a while, watching the anomaly pulse with strange colors. It was beautiful in a terrible way, like watching a fire consume a forest. "What will you do now?" Alina asked. "Report back to my commanders, tell them what happened here, and tell them about you." "Me." "Captain Vasquez, you did something today that no Vorthan would have done. You helped your enemy at great risk to yourself. My people need to know that such humans exist. Perhaps it will change how they think about this war." Alina was not sure what to say. She had not expected any of this. She had just wanted to save lives. Now she was standing on an enemy ship, talking about changing the course of a war. "I just did what any good captain would do," she said finally. Krath turned to look at her. His golden eyes seemed to glow in the dim light. "No, you did what a great captain would do. There is a difference." Before Alina could respond, an alarm started blaring. Red lights flashed across the observation deck. "What is happening?" she asked. Krath was already moving, heading for the door. "The anomaly, something is changing." They ran through the corridors of the Vorthan ship, past warriors who looked at Alina with confusion and suspicion. She was the enemy, walking freely on their vessel, but Krath had given orders that she was to be treated as a guest, and no one dared disobey their commander. They reached the bridge just as the main screen filled with images of the anomaly. It was no longer just swirling. It was reaching out, tendrils of strange energy stretching toward both fleets. "Energy output has increased by 500%, said the Vorthan sensor officer. "At this rate, it will reach us in less than an hour." Alina's communicator buzzed. She answered and heard Chen's voice, filled with panic. "Captain, the anomaly is expanding much faster than we predicted. We need to leave now." "Can we outrun it?" "Maybe, but Captain, there is something else. The energy tendrils are targeting ships specifically. It is like the anomaly is hunting us." Alina felt ice in her veins. A space anomaly that hunted ships. That was not natural. That was not possible. Unless it was not an anomaly at all. "Commander Krath," she said, "I think we have a bigger problem than we thought." Part 3. The combined human and Vorthan science teams worked through the night. They shared data, compared theories, and argued about possibilities. It was the first time in 3 years that members of both species had worked together on anything except killing each other. What they discovered was terrifying. The anomaly was not natural. It had been created. Someone or something had torn a hole in space and was using it to consume ships. The energy it gave off was not radiation but a kind of hunger, a pull that drew matter toward it and broke it down into nothing. "It is a weapon," said Chen, showing his findings to the assembled officers. "A very old weapon. Based on the energy signature, it was activated thousands of years ago. It has been dormant until recently." "What woke it up?" asked Elena. "We did, both of us. The combined energy output of our fleets was enough to trigger its activation. It is designed to detect advanced civilizations and eliminate them." Krath slammed one of his fists on the table. "An ancient trap, and we walked right into it." "We both did," said Elena. "The question is, how do we stop it?" Chen looked uncomfortable. "That is the problem, Captain. According to our calculations, the anomaly cannot be stopped by conventional means. Our weapons will just feed it more energy. The more we shoot at it, the faster it will grow." "Then we run," said one of the Vorthan officers. "We retreat to safe space and let it burn itself out." "It will not burn out," said Chen. "It will keep growing until it consumes everything in this region. Hundreds of star systems, billions of lives." The room went quiet. Elena looked around at the faces of both humans and Vorthan. Despite their differences, they all wore the same expression of fear and determination. "There must be a way," she said. "Everything can be stopped. We just need to find how." Krath nodded slowly. "The human speaks truth. We are warriors. We do not accept defeat. If this weapon can be activated, it can be deactivated." "How?" asked one of his officers. "We do not even understand how it works." Elena's mind was racing. Ancient weapon, designed to detect civilizations, triggered by energy output. There had to be a pattern, a logic to it. "Chen, you said it was dormant for thousands of years. What happened to the civilization that created it?" "Unknown, Captain. There are no records of any species in this region from that time period. They might have been destroyed by their own weapon. Or they might have left something behind, a control mechanism, a way to turn it off." Krath's eyes lit up with understanding. "The core. Every weapon has a core. If we can find the center of the anomaly, we might find a way to shut it down." "The center of the anomaly is certain death," said Chen. "No ship could survive long enough to reach it." "Maybe no single ship," said Elena. "But what about many ships? What if we created a shield using the combined energy of both our fleets?" The room erupted in argument. Vorthan officers shouted at human officers. Scientists talked over each other in 3 different languages. But slowly, an idea began to form. It was crazy. It was dangerous. It would probably get them all killed. But it was also the only chance they had. The plan was simple in concept but incredibly difficult in practice. Both fleets would form a tight formation around one small ship, a vessel that would fly directly into the heart of the anomaly. The surrounding ships would project their shields outward, creating a protective bubble. It would not last long, maybe a few minutes at most. But hopefully, that would be enough time to reach the center and find a way to shut down the weapon. The question was, who would fly the small ship into the heart of destruction? "I will do it," said Elena. The bridge of the Vorthan flagship went silent. Krath turned to look at her, his golden eyes unreadable. "Captain Vasquez, that is a death mission." "Maybe, but someone has to do it, and the Resolute is the smallest ship in both fleets. It will be easier to protect." "Your crew will volunteer. I know them. They will not let me go alone." Krath studied her for a long moment. Around them, officers from both species watched, waiting. "You truly are remarkable," he said finally. "Most beings would run from such a fate. Most beings do not have billions of lives depending on them." "That is not it. Krath took a step closer, towering over her. You are not doing this for billions of strangers. You are doing it because you believe it is right, because you could not live with yourself if you did not try. Alina met his gaze without flinching. Maybe, or maybe I am just too stubborn to give up. Krath made that laughing sound again. Stubbornness, yes, that is something my people understand well. He turned to his officers. Prepare our ships for formation flying. We will protect the human vessel with everything we have. Commander, said one of the Vorthan officers, are we truly going to work with humans? They are the enemy. They were the enemy, said Krath. Today they are allies and perhaps, he glanced at Alina, perhaps tomorrow they will be something more. Part 4. The Resolute flew through space surrounded by Vorthan battle cruisers. It was the strangest formation in the history of either species. Human and Vorthan ships working together, shields linked in a complex pattern that should not have been possible. On the bridge of the Resolute, Alina watched the Anomaly grow larger in the viewport. It was almost beautiful now, swirling colors that seemed to reach out and welcome them to destruction. Shield integration at 92%, said Chen. The Vorthan ships are holding position perfectly. Time to the center. About 12 minutes. But Captain, our shields will fail before that. The energy levels are too high. Alina nodded. She had expected this. Then we go faster. Rodriguez, increase speed to maximum. Captain, that will burn out our engines. I know, do it anyway. The Resolute surged forward, its old engines screaming in protest. Around them, the Vorthan ships matched their speed, maintaining the protective formation. The Anomaly reached out to embrace them. Strange lights danced across the hull. Warning alarms filled the bridge with noise. Alina gripped her chair and held on. Shields at 80%, said Chen. 70, 60. Captain, we are taking damage. Hold course. 50%, 40. The ship shuddered as something hit them. Metal groaned and twisted. Somewhere in the lower decks, an explosion sent flames shooting through the corridors. 30%, 20. Captain, we need to. Hold course. And then suddenly they were through. The center of the Anomaly was not destruction. It was a pocket of calm space, like the eye of a hurricane. Floating in the middle was a structure, a machine of impossible design. It was covered in symbols that glowed with soft light, and it pulsed with the same energy as the Anomaly around it. That is it, said Chen, his voice filled with wonder. That is the control mechanism. Alina stared at it. The machine was beautiful and terrible, a weapon designed to destroy civilizations. And somehow she had to figure out how to turn it off. Can you read those symbols? No, they are not in any language I know. Then we try something else. Alina stood up from her chair. Rodriguez, bring us alongside that thing. I am going outside. Captain, the radiation levels will kill me slowly instead of quickly. I know, but we do not have time to find another way. She was already moving toward the airlock. Chen caught her arm. Captain, let me go instead. I know more about. No, you are the only one who can read the sensor data. You need to stay here and guide me. That is an order. Chen hesitated, then nodded. Yes, Captain. Alina put on her spacesuit and entered the airlock. The door closed behind her, and for a moment she was alone in the silence. She thought about her life, her choices, the path that had led her to this moment. She thought about the Vorthan fleet she had saved, the war she might be ending, the billions of lives she was trying to protect. Then the outer door opened, and she stepped into the void. The silence of space wrapped around her like a cold blanket. Her breath echoed inside her helmet, loud and steady. Outside the protection of the calm zone, she could see the Anomaly swirling, a wall of destruction that would tear her apart in seconds if she strayed too far. But here in the center there was peace, strange peace in the heart of chaos. She floated toward the machine, using small bursts from her suit jets to guide her path. The ancient structure seemed to watch her approach, its symbols pulsing with light that responded to her presence. She wondered who had built it, what they had been like, what had driven them to create such a terrible weapon. "Captain, your suit radiation levels are climbing," said Chen through her helmet radio. "You have about 15 minutes before you reach dangerous exposure." "Understood, I will work fast." The machine was even more impressive up close. Alina floated toward it, her suit jets pushing her through the strange calm at the center of the anomaly. The symbols on its surface seemed to move, shifting and changing as she watched. "Captain, can you hear me?" Chen's voice crackled through her helmet radio. "I hear you. I'm approaching the machine now." "There should be some kind of interface. Look for anything that might respond to touch." Alina scanned the surface. Most of it was smooth metal, but there was one section that looked different. A panel covered in more of those glowing symbols, arranged in a pattern that might have been a control interface. She reached out and touched it. Light exploded around her. Images flooded her mind, visions of an ancient civilization, tall beings with many arms and skin that shimmered like oil on water. They were building the machine, programming it, setting it in place to protect their territory from invaders. But something had gone wrong. The machine had become too powerful. It had destroyed its creators and then gone dormant, waiting for new targets. "Captain, Captain, respond." Alina blinked, returning to herself. She was still floating in front of the panel, her hands still touching the surface. "I am here, Chen. I think I know how to stop it." "How?" She was not sure how to explain. The visions had shown her something, a pattern in the symbols that meant end or stop or rest. If she could find that pattern and activate it. Her fingers moved across the panel, tracing lines between symbols. The machine hummed beneath her touch, responding to her commands. Around her, the anomaly began to slow its spinning. "It is working," said Chen. "The energy output is decreasing. Keep going, Captain." Alina kept tracing the pattern, following the knowledge that had been planted in her mind. The symbols glowed brighter as she touched them, connecting in ways that felt right, that felt like coming home. And then, with a final pulse of light, the machine went dark. The anomaly collapsed in on itself, shrinking from a star-sized disaster to nothing in the span of seconds. The strange lights disappeared. The terrible energy faded away. All that remained was empty space and the ancient machine, now silent and still. Alina floated in the void, breathing hard, barely able to believe it was over. "Captain," said Chen, his voice shaking with relief, "you did it. You actually did it." "Get me back to the ship," she said. "I want to go home." Part 5. The celebration on the Vorthan flagship lasted for hours. Warriors who had been ready to die toasted their survival with drinks that burned like fire. Humans and Vorthan sat side by side, exchanging stories and learning each other's songs. It was the first time in 3 years that members of both species had been in the same room without trying to kill each other. Alina sat in a corner, nursing a drink she could not quite identify, watching the party swirl around her. She was exhausted, drained from the experience of touching the ancient machine, but she was also happy in a way she had not felt in a long time. Krath approached and sat down beside her. For such a large being, he moved surprisingly quietly. "Captain Vasquez, I wanted to thank you again." "You have thanked me enough, Commander. If anything, we should thank each other. Without your ship's shields, we never would have made it to the center." "Perhaps, but without your courage, none of us would have tried." He paused, his golden eyes looking out at the celebrating crowd. "I have spoken with my commanders. They have agreed to send a delegation to human space to discuss a ceasefire." Alina nearly dropped her drink. "A ceasefire just like that?" "Not just like that. There will be negotiations, arguments, probably years of difficult talks, but the first step has been taken. Because of what happened here today, my people are willing to consider the possibility that humans are not simply enemies to be destroyed. And what convinced them? My warning about the anomaly. That was part of it, but mostly. Krath turned to look at her directly. Mostly it was you. You showed us something we had never seen before. A human who would risk everything to save her enemies. A human who believed that all life has value, even Vorthan life. Alina did not know what to say. She had just been doing what felt right. She had never thought it might change the course of a war. I hope, she started, then stopped. She did not know how to put her feelings into words. Hope, Krath prompted. I hope that someday we will not be enemies at all. That humans and Vorthan will be friends, allies, partners in exploring this strange universe. Krath was quiet for a long moment. Then slowly, he extended one of his 4 hands toward her. On that day, Captain Alina Vasquez, I will be proud to call you friend. Alina took his hand and shook it. His grip was strong but careful, mindful of her smaller human bones. Around them, the celebration continued. Human and Vorthan voices mixed together, filling the air with laughter and song. And somewhere in the depths of space, an ancient weapon slept peacefully, its destructive purpose finally ended. It was, Alina thought, a good start. The days that followed were strange ones. The combined fleet stayed in the sector, studying the deactivated machine and mapping the region for any other ancient threats. Human and Vorthan crews worked together, at first awkwardly, then with growing comfort. Alina found herself spending more time with Krath, discussing everything from military tactics to family traditions. She learned that he had a mate and 3 children back on the Vorthan homeworld. She told him about her own family, her parents who still lived in a small town on Earth, her sister who worked as a doctor on one of the colony worlds. They were not so different, she realized. They loved their families, worried about the future, hoped for better days. The war had made them forget that. It had turned each side into monsters in the eyes of the other. What will happen when you return home? She asked one evening, as they sat in the observation deck watching the stars. Krath was quiet for a long moment. I do not know, my people will find this difficult to accept. Working with humans, owing our lives to a human, it goes against everything we have been taught. But you will try. I will try, because I have seen something here that I never expected to see. I have seen that courage and honor are not limited to my own species, and I have seen that sometimes the enemy is not who we think it is. Alina nodded slowly. She understood. Change was never easy, especially when it meant admitting that everything you believed might be wrong. For what it is worth, she said, I think you are a good leader, Commander. Your people are lucky to have you. Krath turned to look at her with those golden eyes. And you are the finest warrior I have ever met, Captain Vasquez, though you would never use that word to describe yourself. I am not a warrior. I am just a ship captain who got lucky. Luck had nothing to do with it. You chose to help us when you could have walked away. You flew into certain death because you believed it was right. That is not luck. That is courage. That is honor. He paused, his voice dropping lower. That is everything my people value, everything we aspire to be, and you showed it to us when we least deserved it. Alina did not know what to say. She had never thought of herself as particularly brave or honorable. She had just done what needed to be done. But perhaps that was what true courage was. Not feeling brave, but doing the right thing anyway. 1 year later, Captain Alina Vasquez stood on the bridge of the new ship, the USS Unity. It was twice the size of the old Resolute, with engines designed by both human and Vorthan engineers. The crew was mixed as well, humans and Vorthan working side by side, learning from each other, becoming something new. The war was over. The peace talks had been difficult, just as Krath had predicted, but in the end, both sides had found common ground. They had looked at the cost of fighting and decided it was too high. They had looked at what they might accomplish together and decided it was worth trying. "Captain," said Chen from his familiar station, "we are receiving a transmission from the Vorthan homeworld." "Put it on screen." Fleet Commander Krath's face appeared on the main viewport. He looked older than Alina remembered, more tired, but his golden eyes still burned with determination. "Captain Vasquez, it is good to see you again." "And you, Commander, or should I say Ambassador?" Krath laughed, a sound that no longer seemed strange to human ears. "Yes, I have been promoted, or demoted depending on how you look at it. Sitting in meetings is not as exciting as commanding a fleet. But more important. Perhaps," he paused, his expression growing serious, "I am calling because we have detected something that worries my scientists." Elena felt a familiar chill, another anomaly. "We do not know yet, but the energy signature is similar, and it is heading toward the border of both our territories." Alina looked around her bridge. Human and Vorthan faces looked back at her, ready for whatever came next. "Then I suppose we should go take a look," she said. "Together." Krath smiled. "Together, yes, that is a good word." The Unity turned toward the unknown, its crew united in purpose. Whatever they found out there in the darkness between stars, they would face it as one. Human and Vorthan, former enemies, now allies, now friends. And the universe, vast and full of wonders and dangers, awaited them all. As the Unity jumped to faster-than-light speed, Alina thought about all the things that had changed since that day 1 year ago. The universe had seemed smaller then, divided neatly into allies and enemies, friends and foes. Now she knew better. Now she understood that the lines between species, between peoples, between enemies and friends were not as solid as she had once believed. She looked around her bridge at the mixed crew. Lieutenant Chen was training a young Vorthan named Kel in the use of human sensor equipment. Rodriguez was laughing at something one of the Vorthan pilots had said. And at the tactical station, a human officer and a Vorthan warrior were arguing good-naturedly about the best way to configure the weapons arrays. This was what peace looked like. Not the absence of conflict, but the presence of understanding. The willingness to see the person behind the uniform, the heart behind the armor. "Captain," said Chen, "we are approaching the coordinates. The energy signature is definitely similar to the anomaly, but smaller, much smaller." On screen, the viewport filled with an image of deep space. At first, Alina could not see anything unusual. Then she noticed it, a small distortion, a ripple in the fabric of reality. "It is artificial," said Kel, the young Vorthan studying his readings. "Same construction as the weapon we destroyed, but this one is not active. It is waiting." "Waiting for what?" "For someone to wake it up, just like the last one." Alina exchanged a look with the Vorthan officer at tactics. They were both thinking the same thing. There were more weapons out there, scattered across the galaxy by a long-dead civilization. Any one of them could become another disaster, another threat to billions of lives. "Then we need to find them," Alina said. "All of them before they wake up." "That could take decades," said Chen. "Centuries even." "Then we better get started." Alina stood up from her chair and walked to the center of the bridge. "All hands, this is the captain. We have a new mission. It will be long and dangerous and probably boring for most of it. But it is important. We are going to search for ancient weapons left by a dead civilization, and we are going to make sure they can never hurt anyone again." She paused, looking at her crew. Human and Vorthan faces looked back at her, united in purpose. 1 year ago, I made a choice to help people I was supposed to hate. I did not do it for glory or recognition. I did it because it was right. And today, I am asking all of you to make the same choice. To dedicate yourselves to protecting lives, no matter whose lives they are. Can you do that? The response was immediate and unanimous. Every voice on the bridge, human and Vorthan alike, spoke the same word. "Yes, Captain." Alina smiled. It was, she thought, the most beautiful sound she had ever heard. Then let us get to work. In the records of both species, the event became known as the Anomaly incident. It was taught in schools, studied by historians, and celebrated in stories and songs. But the most important part, the part that truly changed everything, was not the destruction they had prevented or the weapon they had stopped. It was the moment when one human captain had looked at her enemies and seen people worth saving. That was the moment when everything changed. That was the moment when humanity earned the respect of the stars. Captain Elena Vasquez would go on to lead many more missions, to discover many more wonders, to face many more dangers. But she would always remember that day when she had made a choice. Not the smart choice, not the safe choice, but the right choice. And she would always be proud of it.